And the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has asked China to stop Iran from closing the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the world's most important shipping routes. It is one of the world's most important shipping routes. His appeal came after Iran's state-run television reported that the country's parliament had approved a plan to close the strait, but added that the final decision lies with the Supreme National Security Council. Any disruption to the supply of oil will have profound consequences for the economy. The strait connects the oil-rich Arabian Gulf, which is also called the Persian Gulf, with the Indian Ocean and is reportedly the channel through which at least 20% of the world's oil supplies are between their countries. But the agreement is not only a military alliance and does not oblige Russia to come to the defense of Iran. The Russian leader pledged that the opportunity of the meeting will be used tensions in this region between the United States and Iran. Good to have you join us on The World Now. How do you interpret this strategic rationale, as Trump has described it, of the United States to strike Iranian nuclear facility at this time?
Well, it appears that the Americans and the Israelis have been playing chess while others have been playing checkers. Because I say this because Trump, for the last few months, the Trump administration for the last few months have been engaged in negotiations with Iran over trying to resurrect the JCPOA that Trump got out of in 2015. But we now know, at least some commentaries suggest, that this was all a decoy from the start, that this was to allow Israel and the US coordinate their actions. And in fact, that the actions of Israel on last week to start a war with Iran is not without the knowledge of the US. So I think that I am not surprised by the fact that the US president has decided to join this war effort. If anything, it seems that this was a part of a long-term plan.
And every country has their independent relationship with the United States. We've seen Iran's messaging being very defined in the wake of these strikes. There are concerns about how big of a blow this will be if Iran will be retaliating as they've promised. But with all of this in place, do you think there are still any diplomatic options that could perhaps drive the United States and Iran to talk?
I doubt that there would be sort of a diplomatic off-ramp at this moment. I say this because Iran is in a catch-22 situation. It's damned if it does something, because the US will retaliate and it could spark an axis of terror within that region. But having said that, we have learned fierce examples from Iraq, from Libya, that when you dislodge, and possibly from Syria now, we're still seeing Syria unraveling, that when you dislodge certain regimes who have control over the monopoly of force within that region, that you have to better have a strong alternative to take over power immediately. When you don't have that, you risk opening up the Pandora box. And so I am careful with this call for regime change. As I said, nobody is a fan of the Ayatollah regime, but what is the alternative? Definitely not the Perez family, the Shah regime that has been dislodged since 1979 and are currently in exile without little legitimacy. We have to have a sensible alternative before we start thinking or even suggesting a regime change, because of the potentialities for that country to go to be engulfed in a crisis situation.
But let's talk about the regional dynamics of this situation. Perhaps there will be countries that want to side with Iran. We've seen a lot of that, especially on social media. Some countries want to side with Iran in this situation, and also the United States. And this is sort of, affected alliances, especially in the Middle East. But talk to us about the possibility of, the region coming back together, especially with this kind of, alliances.
I don't know about coming back together, because I think that boat has sailed. What the Israelis have managed to do, and with the help of the Americans, is that they've been able to show us that, number one, as Proverbs 4:7 says, in in all your wisdom is the principal thing, and in all your getting get understanding. I will invert that to say that security is the principal thing, and in all thy getting as a state, get power. And I think that the Turkish president is right on point with this. Turkey is part of NATO, so it has a security cover, but it also understands the potential and the fragility of that. And that's why this Turkish president is talking about creating a deterrent on its own, creating an arms industry that is able to serve as a deterrent to possible actions from belligerent states in that region. And I think that what we are seeing now is that states, especially third world states, must be very careful in entering negotiations with the US and the West, because agreements don't mean anything. Don't forget, JCPOA was suddenly withdrawn from by Trump in 2015. And we're seeing indications that the Trump regime was actually negotiating in bad faith, whilst at the same time planning and in cahoot with the Israelis about these actions for weeks. Right. So for third world countries, the principal action they have to think of is how do we find security? How do we ensure our own security? And what measures can we do to bring that about?
I mean, there are concerns about how large of an impact the retaliation, if there will be any, from Iran will be on the United States. We've heard Trump always saying that, you know, the United States is able to handle this incident. But that's a fine place to leave the conversation for now. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, geopolitical analyst Dr. Adediran. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.